Hi, I am Guillermo del Toro, and I welcome you to the Cronos DVD extras. We thought we would include an extra that has never been seen. Cronos being my first movie is kind of an exploded view of my brain, and it shows everything that is in it. And the perfect way to illustrate a little bit more of what is in it is to show you my house, what I call my man cave or Bleak house. That is where I started finally collecting all the articles, toys, books that I've accumulated over 40 years or more of collecting. This house contains every book I've ever read and most every toy I've ever bought. It contains from my first book and my first toy all the way to now, and props and objects from movies, both my own and other people's, that I've been collecting over the years. The house is organized in libraries, and thus the first library is this one, which is Horror and the Occult. In it, I have all kinds of books, from paperbacks, pulp paperbacks, to old 17th century, 18th century, and 19th century original treatises on vampirism, occultism, witchcraft, magic, so on and so forth. And it's full of rare objects and paintings. The house is entirely covered by original art, pre-production art from movies, comic book pages, and so on and so forth. For example, this little guy here is the first book I bought. I bought it in 1971. I was 7 years old, and it was edited as The Best Horror Stories, and it's edited by Forrest J. Ackerman, who was a spiritual mentor and a really important figure in my life. I patterned this house, the Bleak house, after him and his famous Acker mansion, which was in Los Angeles, in the Los Feliz areas, filling it with paintings, toys, and strange objects. I'll show you a little bit more around. Unfortunately for me, and fortunately for you, I cannot show you the whole of Bleak house, because we are building a new room that is going to contain what I call a rain room. It's going to contain another of the libraries, and it's going to be a room where it's going to be raining all day long. This is the art room, which is essentially contains all the art books, including an almost complete run of the Studio magazine published in the 1890s in London that shaped what we think about modern concepts of art. The color of the walls was stolen by me from the paint patterns in John Sloane's house in London. Throughout the house we have peppered different automatons, mobile toys and maquettes. We have whistling automatons, violin playing automatons, and oracles and so forth. My favorites are by an artist in LA called Thomas Kuntz. Now Thomas creates these automatons the old-fashioned way. They are entirely clockwork, and because of that they have to recur to the ingenuity of centuries past. And they have the same patterns and plans and blueprints than the greatest automaton creators did in the past. Thomas has created these things from scratch, and there are several scattered throughout Bleak house. Bleak house was born one fateful evening when I was already occupying 3/4 of the family home, and my wife grew despondent because I was hanging a picture of a lustful corpse by Richard Corbin right next to the kitchen, and she essentially asked for clemency for the girls who were 9 and 14 not to be exposed to such fantastical creations. And I realized that it was an act of emancipation and a gift of freedom to remove all the collection of strange crap, this very odd modern cabinet of curiosities, away from the family home, and to take it somewhere else where I could enjoy it and work in it along with the crew of people that I work in designing movies and so forth. And thus the man cave was found. Much like the antiquarian shop in Cronos, the Jesus Gris shop, the house is full of all types of trinkets. Originals by Edward Gorey, Arthur Rackham, books from the 18th, 19th century, automatons and so forth. But you can also find all kinds of trinkets. You can find pest dispensers, vinyl models, vinyl toys from Japan and otherwise. And in this shelf, I have all the painted and unpainted models that I collected of Harryhausen over the years and other monsters. And that little guy back there, that Pirates of the Caribbean model, is the first model I painted as a kid at age 7 or 8. This bookshelf has my favorite authors, Borges, Mark Twain, Victor Hugo, Carson McCullers, Truman Capote, and mainly Dickens. So it is through Dickens that we access the secret library, which is dedicated to fairy tales, folklore, and mythology. This library was modeled after the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and all the art on the walls is a reminder of that. It also has original paintings by Mark Davis, and the original wallpaper that was provided to us by the same company that provided the wallpaper in the foyer of the original Haunted Mansion, the Bradbury Company. You can see the gargoyles from the elevator are here too. And this is mainly a great room in which to read and investigate and do some research. So it's a perfect room to make notes on future films and so forth. And this is also a perfect room to do model painting. And as I showed you outside in the shelves, you have the first model I painted as a kid, all the way to the last model I painted in Wellington during the pre-production of The Hobbit, which is this little model of Winslow Leach of Phantom of the Paradise, one of my favorite movies. There's plenty of toys and collectible masks of that movie in the house. In this room, in the shelves, you can find first editions of the colored fairy tale books of Andrew Lang, and first editions of The Wizard of Oz, and all 14 books of L. Frank Baum, and many of the Victorian gift books that were illustrated by Arthur Rackham, Edmund Dulac, John Tenniel, and so forth. And the beauty of these books is not the collectible value of them. It is really that when you open them and you read them, you can evoke accurately and perfectly the feeling of reading, the feeling of wonder you had reading them as a kid. Since the house was modeled after the curiosity cabinets in old Europe that were meant to entertain, thrill, and educate, you will find peppered through the house very strange marine biology specimens, Fiji mermaids, octopus's tentacles, skeletons and skulls, complete specimens of strange birds and malformed children, and even replicas, exact replicas, both clockwork and steam, of large machines in the real world. Another of the inspirations for the Bleak House, for the man cave, was the original research library at Disney Studios, and the philosophy that when you create a group of extraordinary artists, you should definitely feed their imagination with all sorts of images. We have in the house some frames from Gertie the Dinosaur by Winsor McKay, pre-production art by Ivan Durrell, a Sleeping Beauty, Fantasia, that surrounds the artist. But the idea is to create an environment that allows them to be stimulated not just by what is called high art or fine art, but by even the powerful images that come from toys or pop art or vivid imaginations. So everything in the house for me has the equal importance. Whether it's a rubber toy or an anatomical model, whatever it is, it's here to try and provoke sort of a shock to the system and get circulating the lifeblood of imagination, which I think is curiosity. When we lose curiosity, I think we lose entirely inventiveness, and we start becoming old. So the man cave or Bleak House was designed to be sort of a compression chamber where we can create a stimulating environment surrounding the artist with thousands of magazines, books, and in this case, in this, which is the screening room, 7,000 DVDs, hundreds of Laserdisc, Betamaxes, VHSs, and the walls full of art by people that we all admire, be it Ivan Durrell or Nightmare Before Christmas pre-production art, Kay Nielsen, Bill Titla, Basil Gogos, etc. So you see, this house grew out of the fact that we could not hang one painting in a kitchen, and we ended up creating a house that is perhaps not suitable for everyone, but is perfectly suitable for me. As a strange animal, this is my terrarium, and I promise you further excursions to the nether regions of the man cave, Bleak House, in the future. I hope you enjoyed it.